How's it
So
happening?
you know the Chaz, right?
Oh, no.
I didn't want to introduce you as Lauren's boyfriend, but I will.
Well, you're in a full-size race car, at least.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're here at this establishment.
Yeah.
Seems like you got a pretty cool little setup here, but you were just telling me how they've been pretty much doing this kind of breakfast gathering thing for a long time.
Yeah, I reckon over 20 years, Grant, I reckon. Yeah. John Evans used to do it years ago. The late, great John Evans used to host it. I remember it was at the footy club one year.
Yeah.
So it's changed locations over the years, and it's continually grown more and more people every time. It always sells out. I think if we had a place that had 500 people, it would probably get to the stage of 500 would come. Just because of the nature of it, Chaz. It's such a great, relaxed, intimate, exchange, and people can feel safe. It's like you're in a safe place here.
Right.
It's not like an intervention, but it's kind of like we can talk about anything,
Right, I like Rico getting in the bed, with the car owners.
Yeah, that's funny.
In coming over here and me dealing with Speedway Australia and a couple of different places, I feel like your name was brought up a lot, and I feel like a lot in America since that you come over to Knoxville, some of these events, and you're just kind of this Australian guy who does some media, maybe an interview, or they put you in the same category as like a not even a Blake Anderson, but maybe, one of these pit reporter guys.
Yep.
Whereas in reality, you've had a big impact in dirt track racing in Australia for a very long time. I mean, people can't really talk about World Series of Sprint cars getting bigger. It seems like you've done a lot with this sport in Australia before we even heard about it. It would be like Johnny Gibson coming over here and we just treating him like a pit reporter. It would be that almost disrespectful in a way,
It's I'm very grateful for the role that I get to have at Knoxville. Obviously Tony Bockover and Chris Krug before he sort of left this year, and Johnny and Blake and those guys have an established role there already. So I would never expect to come in and do what I do at the Classic at the King's Challenge like I do it at Knoxville.
Right, but your resume is just
thanks. I've been
pretty
around a long
extensive.
time. Yeah, thank you.
They had the lady in there just showing us where you put together a bunch of this stuff for the World Series. What year was that?
2001 to 2007.
And you were talking about giving away cars?
Yeah, we had a Proton Jumbuck Ute to win Speed Week, and we had a Proton Satria GTI, which is worth 30 grand at the time. That was the series prize. So we worked really hard on that stuff. But I had a great little team of people that worked with me, and we had buy-in from the teams, Chaz. So I had the luckiest experiences of my life. I had Brooke Tatnall on the top of his game, Max Dumsney on top of his game, Robbie Farr on top of his game. So we had some of the best teams in the world too. Jason Johnson would come and run with us, Darren Pittman would come and run with us. So we had Brian Brown would come down as well. So we had a period between 2001 and 2007 with some of the greatest years in sprint car racing, and I was just very lucky to be in amongst it all when that was playing out.
Now, how was the Speedway Australia situation? Was that already established at that point? Was all these things going on?
It was called NASA back then, the National Association of Speedway Racing. It's always had a governing body. It's something America doesn't have overlooking the sport as a whole,
right,
like Australia does. So it's a slightly different structure, but it's always had that. World Series Sprint Cars goes back to the late 80s, when it was called the Winfield Series, when George Tatnall was the series champion, and Gary Brazier
from
was
the
racing
Midnight Spares.
Yeah, wow, that's an iconic movie.
I watched it for the first time like a month ago, and it was really good. It's free on YouTube, by the way.
It's really cool to see the old road cars, and there's a lot of icons in that movie.
Well, speaking of that, Speedway Australia governing body, I feel like there's a lot of benefits to doing it that way. I feel like there's a little bit more of everybody working together, at least having to, versus you see kind of like that battle in the Americas. We had a few people say the Outlaws have withstood challenges throughout the years, but the Outlaws actually changed ownerships throughout the years as well. So it seems like there's a little bit more working together, kind of sense of things going on here, and almost, I would say, less ego involved potentially. Everybody's more so, it seems like there's more of a love for the sport rawness over here sometimes.
It's just maybe a bit more regimented in a licensing capacity. You have to have a certain track license or standard to run sprint cars. Right? So there's different levels of safety fence and lighting and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, as you know, in the States, you can run pretty well anywhere. You can run at a fairground. You can go to most places and run a sprint car event. Whereas in Australia, you have to be licensed by the Speedway Australia to be able to do that. So there's Speedway Australia, then there's Sprint Cars Australia, and there's all these sort of governing umbrella bodies that handle sanctioning and handle licensing and things like that. So it's probably more structure because we don't have the sheer volume of racetracks you have and the sheer competitors and all that sort of stuff. So two different worlds. It's hard to compare.
Well, the reason I said love or care is just, I watched that video of Premier kind of admitting to track issues and stuff, and I said in my talk show, I was like, if you just say anything bad about some of these American tracks, the promoter might threaten to kick you out. The level of calmness and addressing the situations just seemed a little more acceptable here. Like it was a part of the normal deal. Caring about the overall show was a big deal.
We are very focused on the fan experience in Australia. Because we don't have the spectator volume that you guys have.
Right.
Like, we've literally got a country that's got 1/10 of your population. So we have to care greatly about every fan experience. And not that American promoters don't care about that. Don't let me...
Yeah, it's all situational. That. It's all situational.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So we're very focused on the fan experience and fan engagement and doing this kind of stuff. But we also... The Knoxville Nationals, we now have the Breakfast with Champions that Doug Clark put together with Tony Bockhoven, and we're doing a lot more of that stuff. But these teams are so much busier, Chaz. Like, they're on the road, 90 times a year, whereas we're racing weekly. So it's a lot easier for us to stop the world and put on a promotion, put on a show, and then send them on their way to the next one. So it's like apples and oranges, really.
Well, one of the bigger differences I've noticed is the youth. It seems like there is a lot of more youth.
I hope so.
At the track here. Like last night, they were just running everywhere.
You noticed that too. All the kids dancing.
It was crazy. I mean, the age bracket from 7 to 15 was like 4 to 5 times as much as you would see at the premier events in America.
It did seem to be really.
I think it's because y'all don't live in a NASCAR shadow, but that's my theory.
Look, we have supercars as well,
but it's road course racing, so
yeah. But it's the rising tide. It's perceived as the number one motorsport code in Australia. So the other thing, when you go to a place like Mount Gambier and Warrnambool, you can run around the whole track. So the kids are up on the grass hills, and as you know, we've got spectators in the corners and things like that. So it's probably. You can't run around and do that at Knoxville because Knoxville's got 2 gigantic grandstands and no real area for families to congregate. And again, that's not a criticism, that's just a different facility.
Structure.
And Premier's the same, although you won't be able to move the next 3
I hear
months.
this mountain's intimidating.
Mount Max.
Mount Max.
And so it's named after Max Dumsney, and it was named by a fan. And it stuck a sign up there that just said Mount Max, and it's still the same sign that it was when it very first got started. So
organically made.
Yep. By the fans. For the fans.